The Childhood Cancer Charity is a pioneering charity with the vision that one day no child will be diagnosed with cancer. They invest in early-stage research into the causation and prevention of all childhood cancers, especially the rarest, along with holistic support for families living with childhood cancer today that helps them navigate and cope with the horrible reality of childhood cancer. In this podcast series, One Day, we will be talking to parents and families living with childhood cancer, researchers and the science community, and those helping to raise funds to better understand the impact of cancer on children, hear what families need following their own experiences, and together grow a community that one day stops childhood cancer in its tracks. In this first episode, we will be speaking to Zahra, trustee of the Childhood Cancer Charity, and Angela, founder of the Daniella Logun Foundation, about their joint approach to supporting families living with childhood cancer, the holistic mental health support the Daniella Logun Foundation offer to families living with childhood cancer, and their thoughts on what the sector needs to help families today and in the future. So we're here to talk about collaboration today. So our first question is for you, Zahra. Your vision is a world free from childhood cancer. Why is that?
I think if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, particularly the one with Angela and her husband Harry, it's harrowing, but it's a reality that a lot of families go through. There's 12 children diagnosed every day with childhood cancer. 12 may not sound like a lot, but by the time you've gone through a week, that's an entire year group or classroom of children in a school across the UK. For any family going through that, I honestly don't know how they cope and they make it through to the side. And for many children, there is survival, and children do survive childhood cancer, but that survival isn't perfect, and it isn't something that the child going into that situation comes out exactly the same as they were previously, and the family hopes and dreams are the same. For any child going through that diagnosis and treatment and then process of recovery, the future they may have will be very different from the future the family may thought they would have had at an earlier stage. So I think for any family, we just, as an organisation, as individuals behind the organisation, we just don't feel it's right that any family should ever have to experience that, and any child should ever have to have the reality of whether or not they will get cancer and whether or not they will or will not survive cancer, because the reality is it can happen to anybody at any time.
It's interesting, Zahra. I was thinking about what you just said about the outcomes for survivors not being perfect. And that's absolutely right. And what we would want to see as a charity in the future is where well-being support is part of the prescribed offer at the point of diagnosis. So just as medicines and investigation and diagnostics are prescribed as part of that care plan, holistic well-being packages are given to families at that point, so that no family goes through the journey without access or reach to pillars of support, emotional support, psychological support, practical support, so that for children who, irrespective of the outcome, whether terminal or non-terminal, just have that pillar of support, they can have as good a quality of life as possible.
Yeah, and I think I'd add, it's not to say that a child's quality of life or a child's life isn't as beautiful or as precious after childhood cancer survival. It's just that it's different.
Yeah.
I think for us, we want to make sure that every child gets an opportunity to grow up and be whatever they want to be,
Yes.
and has that future you envisage when the child's born.
Yes, that's true.
So the next question I have for you, is it really realistic to create a world free of childhood cancer?
I mean, let's be honest, it's ambitious, but it's deliberately so. Because there are so many organisations out there doing so many incredible things in this space, and we're not taking away from what any of those do or wherever they're going, but many of them focus on one specific cancer type, one specific type end of the journey, so be treatment or cure, or kind of other areas of kind of life support whilst, so family support and family kind of needs whilst the child's going through that process. So that may be housing, it may be financial support, so on and so forth. Everyone's focusing on their own area, we as an organisation are trying to focus across the whole space. So it's hugely ambitious. But if we don't aim for that, we're going to fall short. It's not without a lot of work to get there, and without a lot of support from the childhood cancer community, the science community, the medical community, and beyond. But we've got to, we as trustees, when we sat down and said, what does this sector need? What's the gap and what's missing? We genuinely felt like it was an umbrella organisation that's collaborating specifically in childhood cancer to create this world where no family has to hear the words, it's cancer, about their child. So we know it's ambitious. We think it's possible.
I was thinking about how this extends to other cancers. Today, the fear and the uncertainty around, for instance, breast cancer is a lot smaller. It's smaller than 10, 20 years ago. That's the vision for the future of childhood cancer. We want a situation where, if at all a family is told your child has cancer, there is provision to support you through it. And the investment in technology and treatment, care plan, family support is so advanced that it's not treacherous. It's just not treacherous. And without collaboration by all the childhood cancer players, it's going to be more difficult to achieve.
I think breast cancer is a really interesting example to use because it's one that it had a really high focus in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
It's one that now is preventable because of the amount of research that went into
100%.
the genetic sequencing. So you know whether or not you are likely to carry the gene for or not. Obviously, some breast cancers are not genetic, so there are other ways of detecting that. The screening processes, the greater awareness in the medical sector, so there's greater prevention and early intervention. But by knowing, it gives you options.
Correct.
And it gives people a choice as to what they do about it.
Correct.
And then how their life moves from there. And that's exactly, as an organisation, what we want to do. We're looking more so at prevention and causation than we are at treatment and cure, purely because if we can understand the whys and we can understand the how something forms and what is affecting it to the point where cancer develops in children to begin with, we can then look at working with the various communities and sectors, so medical, research, science again, and general community, on an awareness piece around how do we help people avoid it to even begin with, which, when you're talking about children, is a slightly difficult space to be talking about. And I really want to clarify, we're not necessarily talking about genetic screening, but we're talking about really understanding the root cause of cancer for each specific cancer type, for each way it manifests in a child, to then get to a point where we can work with communities to help prevent and to help make choices that are more informed at a stage early enough that a child's diagnosis is hopefully avoided. But if there is a diagnosis, they've got a greater understanding and greater support to be able to deal with that situation.
Correct. And information is power. And what I'm hearing you say is the research behind the whys. And the government, I keep mentioning the government because the national purse is important in the investment into childhood cancer and the understanding of why it's happening and how to prevent it if possible. And should a child go onto that journey, the diagnosis phase is actually very unstable at this stage, simply because it's hit and miss in many, many cases. There's a lot of misdiagnosis and late diagnosis, which reduces the options and worsens the outcomes. So that investment needs to go into those type of areas. If we find it early, and that's one of the philosophies around breast cancer, you find it early, you treat it early, you cure it. Childhood cancer, childhood brain tumours need the same. One of the most important things for us is the focus on the child, because these are young people are yet to live their lives. And we believe that that's a very important point, and they need to be given the opportunity to live that life. So why there is such underinvestment is beyond my understanding. It's beyond belief and rationalization, because we feel that as the future of the nation and the world, we need to be able to invest our resources and our technological power in protecting children and giving them the future. Otherwise, we don't have a future that is secure.
So collaboration is at the heart of both of your causes. So could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's a value we both hold really dear. And I think it's a value as to why we're both sat here today having this conversation. I also think, to touch on the earlier question about is it possible, on our own, absolutely not. Not just because of the amount of money that would be needed to make that happen, but just cancer's so many different variations of, it's an umbrella term for so many different diseases, that we don't have the time to be focusing on one cancer at a time and working through that process and then moving to the next. As a society, we should be doing stuff together so that we are moving the whole childhood cancer movement forward.
Correct.
I also feel like there is learnings in one cancer type to another, that if we just focus on one specific area and follow that through to the point of understanding it and being able to treat and cure, then we might have missed something and be able to apply that learning to another cancer type that actually, whilst we're waiting, means a whole subset of other families and children are suffering needlessly. So collaboration is so important so that we can work across multiple different streams at one time, but with a unified focus of let's understand the why and then let's understand how we support and treat.
100%. The childhood cancer sector is one of the few sectors where working in isolation is not an advantage at all. Joining up together, bringing resources, expertise, experience together is going to make us more powerful. I've seen that in just us working together and sharing our knowledge and sharing ideas and coming up with new strategies of how we're going to attack the same problem. I know that there are different fields and different areas of specialism, but there are commonalities and threads that run right across all the different types of childhood cancer. And well-being, research, lifestyle, quality of life outcomes are those common threads. And by sharing what we do, working together to deliver, then we will be able to, as you've said, move forward faster, because we're losing time. As you said, children are suffering, children are dying, families are breaking up, and we need to think about how to accelerate the progress, and collaboration is one of those ways.
Yeah, I think to touch on what you were saying earlier as well about the awareness side and the late diagnosis, our remit within the Childhood Cancer Charity is investment in research, fundamentally for causation and prevention. But we have an area of work that we want to get to, we will get to in the future, that's around that awareness campaigning side and that awareness building. Because depending on who you go and see, and this is no slight or attack on anybody in the NHS, they do an absolutely incredible job, but depending on who you see and depending on what their experience is and what they've come across in their career to date, they may or may not know what, particularly at GP level, what it is that your child is presenting with. By the time you get through to a specialist, depending on the type of cancer and depending on how aggressive it is, it may then be too late for that to be treated for survival or treated for palliative care. And it's like NHS doing an amazing job and they're incredible people, but we need to get to a point where everybody has an understanding of what the manifestations of childhood cancer might be, how it presents, what the potentials might be, and how we move quickly from it could be this to we will make sure we've checked and it is or it isn't, and this is now your treatment or care plan or the path we'll take for you. And I think at the moment, the whole system is incredibly slow and is incredibly potted, depending on where you live, who you get to speak to, and how quickly you are along that journey. And we want to create a space where that just isn't the case.
And I can attest to that, the issue of there being such a variation in awareness. Because when Danny was diagnosed, if I may refer to that, we became aware that not all GPs have experience with brain tumours or childhood cancer. So if you live in an area where there's low awareness, then that's a big issue and a barrier right from the start. So again, it's exactly what you've said about us being the promotion, the awareness campaigning. I find it needs to be creative to target different audiences with different bits of information. Because one size doesn't fit all. You can't have just one brand campaign. It won't work in all the different locations and areas of specialties.
It's hard, right? It's hard. It's a really emotive, difficult subject.
Very, very difficult.
Anyone that's got a family and is a parent, anyone that has nieces and nephews, it's an incredibly difficult subject to talk about. But if we don't talk about it and we don't raise awareness and we don't invest in early interventions, we're always going to have to deal with talking about loss, which is even harder.
No one likes to talk about childhood cancer at all. And we have to develop fun ways, interesting ways of getting people's attention. And like you've said, if we don't talk about the awareness and the prevention and the treatment, then we talk about the loss from cancer, which is then too late.
So, Zahra, how are you working with the Daniella Logun Foundation and what brought the two of you together?
So I met Terry, so your husband and co-founder, at an event, a speaking event around cancer, with an incredible speaker whose name I really wish I could remember right now. He's written a book called The First Cell. Go read The First Cell. It's amazing. It was a research event for adult cancer, really, but talking about the originating cell of cancer that may be dormant for years before it actually then manifests into something that is malignant. And we were both at this event, listened to this speaker, and were drawn to talking to each other afterwards. He then introduced us to the rest of the organisation. We clicked straight away.
And I have overtaken the relationship with Zahra just because Terry did say to me excitedly he met this woman and this team of people who are so passionate about childhood cancer and improving the future, for children with childhood cancer, investing in research, etc., etc. And when I met Zahra, absolutely light bulb moment, it just exploded with energy and ideas for how we need to do so much more. And it just felt like a natural synergy to bring our lived experience caring for Danny with your passion and your approach. That vision just seemed like it just merged very neatly. And it's been a case of just talking very frequently. Having this conversation today is a brilliant opportunity to come together as a team and tell the world about an important issue, childhood cancer, that affects us a lot more than we actually care to admit. We all know somebody or are connected to somebody or a child somewhere. We all are. After Danny's diagnosis, the impact on the teachers and the academic community, the school community, was phenomenal because you don't tend to think about that, about how connected they are to this. And it made me realise that as a community, this affects us all. Just that we don't have opportunities to talk about it or to do something in a safe, healthy way. And this podcast, the collaboration working with you, is an opportunity to reach more and have more impact.
Yeah, and I think it's a beautiful fit, and I think it's a fit that we would like to explore more of with more organisations like yourselves, because we do very different things.
Yeah.
And I think, we're all, Childhood Cancer Charity is all about the research side and causation and prevention. Daniella Logun Foundation is about the holistic care and mental health support for families. And I think there's a nice complement in that, because our ambition and our vision is huge. It's going to take us a really long time to get to where we want to get to. And along that journey, more and more families are going to be diagnosed, are going to go through this process and are going to need additional support. And for us, we're keen to work with other organisations in a similar way, in that we can have a collaborative approach to how we work with families, to where we signpost people to for support,
Correct.
for how we support them day to day.
Correct.
And that we can work together on awareness campaigns and, of course, obviously fundraising as well. But we want to create a space where people know they can come to us no matter what part of this journey they're at, whether they are beginning, end, survival, they've lost someone previously, and we will support them with what they need today, but together create a future where some of that need isn't necessary.
Correct.
So you did start to briefly touch on it for a moment there, Angela, but what inspired you to work with the Childhood Cancer Charity, and what do you both want to achieve together?
What inspired me was the power of collaboration. Again, we were helped by one phone call from the headmistress of Danny's primary school. And that one phone call connected us to another charity that looked after adults with brain tumours. But it opened up a new world of support, resources, and without that, it wouldn't be possible to be here today. So information is impossible. The information is powerful, is what I'm trying to say. Working with Zahra opens access to a new world that we wouldn't ordinarily have access to. Other charities involved in research. We've previously come in contact with larger charities, but who don't have regional presence. Being based in London brings it back home to the same community, and we are invested in impacting the London area and the surrounding regions. So this is an opportunity for us to join up forces with our focus on well-being and family support. Join up with you in terms of research development to get the attention of those who matter, the key opinion leaders who are out there and who can help us make that change. Otherwise, working in isolation, working as a single cog in a wheel will not give us the impact or the reach that we need, especially to critically save the lives of children who are diagnosed with cancer and are already suffering alone in this pathway. So by raising awareness as a joined up force, we want to get more attention. We need people to sit up and look and listen.
So what do you need to invest in, and what will it take to realise this vision, Zahra?
So I think there were some really interesting points in your last podcast around when people hear research, it sounds quite dry. It sounds like it's quite it is laboratory based.
Yes.
And we're talking early stage, so we're not talking clinical, we're not talking drug trials in hospitals, we're talking before that. Potentially move forward into clinical trials with a more informed approach because we understand the origins of cancer. But actually it's not just laboratory research on cells. Nutrition's really important, emotional well-being is really important, mental health is really important, physical health. We're taking a holistic approach to how is a child affected and what do we need to understand to be able to create a space in a world where we know what the cause is, and then we can help with the prevention and more informed treatments because they're tailored to the origins of the disease. Alongside the investment in research for us is the investment in awareness and campaigns. So educational pieces in kind of fellowships within universities, keeping people in science. So a lot of people will go through sort of research in a university course, postgraduate, PhD, and then go on to a more commercial role because essentially it pays better. You then lose that experience, that ability and that information from the sector. And we want to create a space where we can retain it in the childhood cancer research space rather than being people going outside of commercial roles, because we've then got more chance of being able to realise our vision if we keep more people in science that have that kind of specialist experience. We also want to invest longer term, and some of the trustees will tell me if I'm saying this out loud now, but longer term in STEM, because the more we can get people at a young age interested in the science and the holistic side of it, the more ability we have for people coming up and through that can then add something at a later stage in their careers. So predominantly it's research to begin with. There's an educational campaign piece, and then there's an educational investment piece around science generally.
And how can people get involved?
They can come and tell their story. I think more than anything else, particularly for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, we need more people to be working with us, collaborating with us, sharing their story and their experience, and telling us what the space needs. We, as trustees of the organisation, have a vision, we have a direction, and we think we know what we want to do and deliver. But actually, our vision and our direction is informed by the community that actually needs us. So if you're someone listening who has experienced childhood cancer from any perspective, we would love to hear from you. You touched on earlier around the investment side, and it's interesting because I think people would think cancer is really well funded from government perspective, potentially, absolutely from a charity perspective. People would think there's an awful lot of money going into it every year. So why do you need more? There is a lot of money going into cancer research and into cancer. There isn't a lot going into childhood cancer.
Correct.
So of the money that is donated every year in the voluntary sector, around 2% goes to childhood cancers.
That's right.
You've then got 12 children every day diagnosed, 2 of whom will not survive currently. 2% goes practically nowhere, and the majority of that 2% is spent on treatment and cure.
Correct.
Which absolutely at this point in time is needed and is necessary, but it'll always be needed and necessary if we don't look at prevention and causation and prevention. So yeah, I think one thing is awareness and telling the story. I think knowing that it isn't as well funded as you think it might be is another. And if people want to get involved in supporting from a fundraising perspective, they can absolutely do that too. So yeah, those are the ways people can get involved. Talk to us.
And you're right, people misunderstand the investment proportions when it comes to cancer. And you're right, it's shocking, just the number, 2% going into childhood cancer. But at the same time, research, as you've just said, is not dry laboratory-based research. We've had, just to give examples of the good quality work that is ongoing and needs more investment in the areas of the holistic innovation around care delivery. There's research going into the experience of parents who have children on the cancer pathway, or who have lost children from cancer, and their experiences, their learnings, and what insights they can lend to the improvement of the quality of the palliative care service. Also, there is research into the importance of improving children's palliative care outcomes. And this brilliant piece of work, if I may drop, I'm not sure if it's allowed, but it's just a brilliant piece of work by King's College London and other organisations across the United Kingdom into developing childhood cancer palliative care outcomes, improving spirituality, improving emotional care, psychological care, practical care, and factoring those into the delivery of health care, so medicine. Taking patient views, taking children's views, taking parent views, understanding cultural influences, understanding traditional beliefs, just making everything a rounded approach so that the doctors, the consultants, the oncologists have enough ammunition to understand that child's needs, and the family has access to other resources to make that experience more bearable. So the complexity that is around childhood cancer is absolutely enormous. And we just need the government and all the relevant organisations and agencies to begin to think about more investment into childhood cancer research. So much more is needed. We don't need outdated medicines. We don't need outdated treatments or toxicity in children. We need technology, advanced technology that can safely deliver medicines into children. Brain tumours, one of the biggest challenges with brain tumours is the blood-brain barrier. And without the right innovation, the treatment does not, the therapies don't reach the cancer centres in the brain. So we need innovation that can break through that to make sure that the treatment experience is precise.
Innovation is really important. And I think it was something you touched on in your earlier podcast as well, in that the treatments we currently have are largely the same as they were 70 years ago.
Yeah.
They're surgery at the first stage.
Shocking.
Because that is the easiest way to it's the easiest way to remove cancer is surgery. That's not a simple thing, and it's not something you'd ever want a child to go through. It's chemotherapy, it's radiotherapy. There've been some really incredible advancements in some cancers over the last sort of 5 to 10 years around targeted gene therapy and T-cell therapy, but they tend to be for leukemia because that's the most prevalent childhood cancer.
That's right.
And it's blood cancer. So no cancer's easy, but it's an easier cancer to be able to treat.
Yeah.
There are so many other cancers who don't even get a look in. Because when and in talking in numbers in terms of research, that 2% is 15 million a year. 15 million. That's, I don't even know what that equates to in terms of the annual travel budget for London, but it is tiny when you actually put it into real numbers for research and development of treatment, cure, so on and so forth. So there's that innovation space is critical. Because we can't keep doing things how we have been doing them.
No, and expect new results.
No,
not
exactly. Exactly. So innovation, collaboration, working together to create a space where it isn't something we have to keep talking about.
Correct.
Great. Thank you both so much for sharing your insights. Just a reminder that the month of September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and if you have a story to tell or you want to get involved, then do get in touch with the Childhood Cancer Charity.
Can I plug in the Family Fun Day?
Yeah.
We are having a Family Fun Day on the 30th of September to crown our campaign event. So during the month, we'll be raising awareness, going out to schools and talking to different people in the community about childhood cancer, research needs, wellbeing needs. And on the 30th of September, this will be our 3rd year of having a Family Fun Day where we invite the entire community and everyone who's been involved in the hard work of raising awareness to come and use play to raise awareness. So children will have fun at the bouncy castles. There'll be lots of food and drink, face painting, children's games, balloon modelling. There'll be lots of balloons to give away. And there'll be information about childhood cancer, which we have tastefully created in order to send the message appropriately without frightening away our little children. At the same time, we will have the Childhood Cancer Charity on site on the day. So there'll be lots of games and competitions. So everyone who's available, come to our Family Fun Day and let's raise awareness together.
Thank you both for sharing your insights. Really looking forward to seeing where the collaboration goes between the two organisations. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.